Good morning. Afternoon, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. If we could have everyone settle into some seats, that'd be great. We have a few more down front if anyone up back wants to, out in the back wants to get a better view. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to have you all in the room today. Welcome to the White House, and welcome to our kickoff event for Computer Science Education Week. We have a great lineup for you today, some really exciting commitments and announcements from our friends in the private and nonprofit sector and from state and local government and school districts. So we really appreciate all of the effort everyone has made, and I do not want to stand in the way of the rest of this great program. So I will turn the stage and the microphone over to the President's Advisor for Science and Technology and the Director of the White House Office of Science and Technology, Dr. John Holdren.
Well, thanks, Danielle, and thanks to all of you for being here. It's really a pleasure to add my welcome to Danielle's to the White House. Really great to have you all here to kick off Computer Science Education Week. Those of you in the room today are all folks who have been working tirelessly to help provide students with the skills they need and the inspiration they need to be the innovators of the future. I want to call out particularly Dr. France Cordova, the director of the National Science Foundation, from whom you'll hear later in the program. She brought with her today 70 computer science teachers from around the country who are here to join us in celebration of Computer Science Education Week and to collect even more tools and insights about how to prepare and inspire their students. So please join me in recognizing the computer science teachers who are here today, who are in the trenches every day, nurturing talent, recognizing greatness in our nation's young people. I have been, of late, touring a number of college campuses around the country. I've been extremely impressed by what has been going on there, the redesign of learning spaces, creating classrooms where students problem solve in teams, engage in scientific experiments and engineering design. These are, by the way, not the classrooms of my undergraduate experience. That was a while ago. But I think all of us can imagine how different a modern high school or middle school computer science classroom looks compared to what most of us experienced in those days. What's available to students today is really exciting. It could not even be imagined a decade ago. I cut my teeth in computing on an IBM 7094 supercomputer in the early 1960s. It was one of the most powerful computers in the world. There were only 5 of them. They were good enough to do the orbital mechanics for the moon mission, to do the weather simulation of the day, and the last I looked, my iPad was equivalent to 5,000 of them. So we really are in a different era, and that's why we're here this afternoon, really to talk about the promise of 21st century education, the promise that we need to be nurturing in all of America's classrooms. And of course, we're here to talk about new commitments being announced by nonprofit and corporate leaders, the federal government through the National Science Foundation, and other partners in the field. These initiatives represent very substantial progress in expanding and improving computer science education. It is, in fact, just a part, computer science education is just a part of our focus in the Obama administration on preparing our students to be the discoverers, the innovators, the entrepreneurs of the future. In fact, just a little while ago, this president joined a number of students upstairs who were doing their hour of code here at the White House. In fact, the reason we're a little bit late is the president, as he always does when he's in a room full of students, took longer than his schedulers had planned to interact with these amazing kids. He has said time and again that lifting our game in STEM education is perhaps the single most important thing we can do for the future of our country. And that's true really for three reasons. One, not just to educate and train the next generation of Nobel laureates, of discoverers, of high-tech entrepreneurs, but also to train the high-skills workforce that the jobs of this century are increasingly requiring. And perhaps just as important as those other two, to create the science-savvy citizenry that a democracy will need to function effectively in an era when more and more of the issues that are in front of our elected leaders have science and technology content. Citizens cannot be informed voters if they don't understand anything about the science and technology content that their elected leaders are dealing with. And that is why early in this administration, President Obama called for an all-hands-on-deck approach to improve STEM learning outcomes. And I want to say that we have had a fantastic response to that all-hands-on-deck call from the President. Partners in industry, philanthropy, nonprofits, academia, education have all stepped up in very impressive ways. In 2009, late in 2009, for example, the President launched what we called the Educate to Innovate campaign, which included both federal investment and public-private partnerships with the dual goals of helping inspire young people to pursue STEM fields in the first place, and secondly, to provide them with the support and the tools that they would need to succeed in STEM studies and careers. And the sustained commitment from the private sector and philanthropic partners in that effort, in support of the Educate to Innovate initiative, really demonstrates that STEM education, STEM learning is not just important to educators and government leaders, it's important to companies across America, large and small, who know that they need more and more STEM talent in order to grow their businesses and to advance their bottom line. And that is just one example of a lot that could be given about what is going on in the domain of partnerships around STEM education. There's a tremendous amount of positive progress that has been made through these initiatives, lots of individual examples of success, but of course we know that we can do more and we must do more. We know that there are far too many kids for whom the spark of discovery is never ignited. The promise of a first-class 21st century education has not yet reached every corner of the country, as evidenced by the fact that a large majority of K through 12 schools don't even offer any computer programming courses. And in 25 out of 50 states, computer science classes do not count toward math and science graduation requirements. But we also know that young people by nature are curious, they're creative, they're interested in not only understanding the world around them, but in solving problems, in addressing challenges. And we need to find better ways, more ways, to nurture that spirit of curiosity, the spirit of creativity, and to offer students the foundational skills that they need to turn that curiosity and creativity into real discovery and real application. The administration has undertaken a number of efforts in that domain. I've mentioned a couple already. Let me mention a few more. One of the things the President has done from the beginning is to set ambitious national goals, and then to work with his staff at the Department of Education and the Domestic Policy Council and OSTP to identify ways to make progress to meet those goals. Those goals include moving American kids from the middle to the top of the pack in international rankings in science and math, preparing 100,000 new outstanding STEM teachers for our schools over the space of a decade, producing 1 million more STEM college graduates, again over the space of a decade, and broadening participation in STEM fields for women and other underrepresented groups. Second, maintaining a strong investment in STEM education has been important, even during the difficult budgetary times that we have been facing. The President's FY 2015 budget proposed $2.9 billion for STEM education, which was an increase of 3.7% over the 2014 investment. Third, incorporating STEM education as a priority into the administration's overall education reform strategy. The Department of Education's $4 billion Race to the Top program and high school redesign pilot at the Department of Labor, Youth Career Connect grants, all included a preference for proposals that emphasized innovation in STEM education, and in particular, support for reaching girls and the other historically underrepresented groups in STEM fields. Another thing that's happened very conspicuously is deploying the president's personal passion for getting more students excited about science and math. The President hosted the first ever White House science fairs. We've had 4 of those so far, inviting student winners of math, science, robotics, engineering competitions across the country to enjoy a spotlight at the White House just as the national champions in college and professional sports get to do. The President keeps saying, you know, I like meeting with the sports teams, but I like even more meeting with scientists, engineers, and kids who are excelling in science, engineering, and math. This spring, President Obama hosted the first ever White House Maker Faire to showcase both students and adults who are making use of tools and skills to design and make some really incredible innovations and solutions to everyday challenge. And of course, we have been pushing on, and we will want to continue to push on expanding this overwhelmingly positive response to the all-hands-on-deck call the President made at the beginning of his administration. Of course, that's where everybody in this room has come in and will continue to come in. Our partners have included a lot of you in this room, school districts, including the 7 largest school districts in the United States, committing to teach computer science to more students in middle and high school, over $20 million in philanthropic contributions to Code.org to train 25,000 teachers to teach computer science in time for the school year beginning in fall 2015, with leadership and key support from Dr. Cordova and her colleagues at the NSF. Number of leading education nonprofits announcing major expansions in their effort to support computer science education, and new steps to increase the participation of women and underrepresented minorities in computer science, including a new computer science classroom design prize. It turns out that the design of the classroom affects how welcoming it seems to girls and women who are thinking about whether or not they're going to do computer science. So thanks to all of you, again, for your commitment to improving and expanding computer science and STEM education. As the President said last year on this occasion, if we want America to stay on the cutting edge, we need young Americans to master the tools and technology to do just about everything. So this week, let's take the opportunity to work with our students on hands-on coding and computer science. Let's celebrate the new tools we can design and create. Look at the problems we can solve with the power of computing and bring them to the attention of our young people. You have a fabulous lineup for the rest of the program this afternoon, so I will not keep you from it. It is my great pleasure to introduce somebody in whom you have a true and tireless champion in these issues, the Chief Technology Officer for the United States, Megan Smith. Megan.
Thank you, Dr. Holdren. It's incredible to be here. We just had a really fun event with all these fabulous young people, middle school students, together with the President, and some of them taught him to code. So we have hit that as a country. We have a coding president. So I encourage all of you to try Hour of Code. Where's Hadi? Hadi and his brother Ali are here. They're American heroes. They're colleagues, yes. We were lucky to be, before when I was in my Silicon Valley hat, I was Laureen Powell Jobs hosted one of the early fundraisers for Code.org, and it was fun because Ali introduced Hadi. They are always number 1 and 2 in their class, and they just get things done together, and we really salute you guys for what you've done and for all the help and the collaboration of who you've brought together. So it's a really big deal. I just want to, with Dr. Holdren, just welcome everybody to the White House. We have an extraordinary group of people, of leaders assembled amongst you who are really going to get this done on behalf of our children. You know, my friend Mark Andreessen, Netscape founder, early on, he has a favorite expression, which is software eats the world. And I think, you know, sometimes people think coding is one thing, but actually code permeates so many things. And so for our children to have the tools for coding, to have the tools, just like we teach them, we would never teach them not to write when we teach them to read. But we often teach them math and science and other things and history of that without teaching them to make and to create. And so that's what this is all about. And code is one of the more accessible of all the things you can do. And it really has to do with everything. You know, often when I talk to science fair students, I'll find that whether they're looking at water or something robotic or some kind of research, they're doing something with code to model, to make some, to control a device, et cetera. So it's really permeates, and it really is a core 21st century skill. So this week is, with Computer Science Education Week, is Hour of Code. We're hoping that tens of millions of students and adults will do that. And so that's up on the web. The other things, Dr. Holdren talked a little bit about some of the amazing commitments, but the one that I wanted to really, the ones that I really want to highlight is more than 60 school districts are stepping up to make sure that coding and computer science are going to be available to the middle and high school. And that includes 7 of the largest school districts. So New York City in the house, Los Angeles in the house, Chicago, Illinois, Miami-Dade, Clark County in Nevada, Broward County, Florida. We were just with them. They also have some amazing insights in bringing folks who've not been, and Houston, Texas too, folks who have not been, you know, so engaged in school. You've got some new programs, and I hope you guys will talk to these guys because they have real breakthroughs on how to pull some of those kids back using code and get them engaged and get them graduating and get them making amazing things and having passion in their lives. The other thing is $20 million of funds have been raised to train 25,000 teachers. Some of them, of course, would be elementary school, as well as that classic computer science middle and high school. And an extraordinary group of donors have come together to do that, so we thank all of those donors. Some are corporate, some are individuals. So the NSF team is here. We're going to hear from Dr. Cordova shortly, but really, you guys have been leading the way for so many years around not only amazing science frontiers, but also including youth and getting the youth into science with research about how people learn science. From some of my favorite stuff, like the Magic School Bus collaborations early on, to now some very deep collaborations around bias and around new kinds of curriculum, teaming up with the AP teams so that there'll be a new AP Computer Science and many things that I'm sure you'll get into. I know the Teach for America folks are stepping up to do training. And across the board, there's like team after team after team, Massachusetts, the Project Lead the Way, and others who are really coming together. The other one that Dr. Holdren mentioned is, for some reason, you know, young women and people of color have not been coming into this field. And it's really striking because if you go back in time, the first computers were actually people. And many of them were women and people from all different backgrounds. And the founders of computer science are actually quite diverse. We were able to show the children, the Navy archives shared with us some of Grace Hopper's collection. Grace Hopper was, of course, the incredible American Rear Admiral in the Navy who didn't like writing in, you know, this low-level code and invented the idea of using human languages. Basically the beginning of programming languages and the idea of compiling from a human language, the first one becoming COBOL, and compiling into machine language. And so now Java and all these languages we have stem from Grace's invention. She also, fun fact, invented the word debugging when she found bugs on some of the vacuum tubes. So we were able to honor Grace's incredible legacy. Her birthday is tomorrow. So we celebrate her. And part of the celebration includes launching, as Dr. Holdren said, this amazing classroom design prize. The new science is showing us that ambient bias, and there's an expert here on ambient bias, what's around you makes you feel like you belong or not. So we need to make sure our classrooms feel like everyone belongs. And so we are launching a prize to have a contest to really make these inclusive physical spaces for young people. And then, of course, our amazing partners like Yes We Code, and others. There's NC-WIT has partnering to outreach to Latina students. So we're seeing a lot of great programs that are groundswelling from many of you in the room and others to really include a lot more people. So maybe I'll just quick end before I turn it over to Dr. Cordova from NSF. We were lucky to be joined by Prince William here in the US right now. He was here at the White House recently. And many people don't know that the beginning of computer really is a British and American story from World War II. Of course, there's the early days with Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage from the UK. Ada's birthday is on Wednesday. She's from the mid-1800s and invented the idea of programming. But later, during World War II, there was a great need for computation, for ballistic trajectories, for code cracking and other things, and Americans stepped up and invented what is now the computer industry. At University of Pennsylvania, the ENIAC, and in Bletchley Park in the UK, they cracked the codes from the Nazi enigmas and are credited with saving 11 million lives and shortening the war by 2 years. I note them with the visit of Prince William because Kate, his wife, her grandmother, was a Bletchley Park code cracker. And it's a little-known story, and yet at that museum, it's 25-1 boy visitors to girl visitors. So we really, really need to know our history. More than half of the people at Bletchley were women, and many of the people who invented this technology were all kinds of people. In the early days of NASA, Katherine Johnson, who was the computer, actually a job like accountant, who later became a programmer and calculated the trajectories. She's an African-American woman. She's 96. She lives in Maryland. She calculated the trajectories and was a computer for Alan Shepard, John Glenn, and the Apollo mission. So we need to know about these amazing heroes, and it's part of this fourth area of the Classroom Design Prize and all these great folks getting together so we can have all of us make the future together. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Cordova.
Good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be part of this and to be able to say a few words on behalf of the National Science Foundation and make a couple of announcements that are relevant for this morning. I want to thank John and Megan and, of course, the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and Vice President Joe Biden for this morning's activities and involvement of our teachers and students. It was really inspirational. I think for myself, it was the first time that I've been in a room with both the president and vice president together and just equally enthusiastic about our young people and really getting involved in their stories. I also want to say Megan's remarks inspired me to think for flashback just for a moment on how that I made a transition many years ago from being an English major and graduating in English at the university to becoming an astrophysicist. And it didn't occur to me, Megan, until you made your remarks, that it was because of coding that I knocked on the door of a Caltech professor and I said, I'm here, I want to become a physicist, and all I have to show for it is an English degree. And he said, well, so what can you do? And I said, well, computers and coding and all that was very new at the time, and it seemed not too hard, just the Fortran 4 manual. You know, some of you have never heard of Fortran 4, at least. And he said, well, we desperately need somebody to do some codes for our astrophysics programs, especially launching rockets and satellites. And so I did that for my project, and then I snuck in the back door of Caltech, where I eventually ended up getting my degree. So coding does work as an entry, okay? Well, I really want to acknowledge the computer science teachers in the audience who are taking time away from their classrooms today to share best practices for teaching and learning. Without their inspirational efforts, today's events would showcase a number of new and successful partnerships that promise to bring computer science education into K-12 classrooms across the nation would not be possible. So I'd like all of us in the audience to give another big hand to our computer science teachers. Teaching really does touch the future. I'm married to a person who was a teacher in K-12 and then a teacher in high school, and have 2 daughters who are both teachers. For NSF, this event today is the first in a series of events NSF is planning throughout 2015 to illustrate the value of NSF partnerships and the great leveraging we can have through partnership. We plan to highlight the impact of NSF's existing private and industry partnerships, of which there are many, and we hope to spark conversations that mobilize other partners to join with us. To return to today's excitement, I want to note that we're celebrating the first day of Computer Science Education Week. CS Ed Week was designed by Congress in 2009 to honor Grace Hopper, who you heard about from Megan Smith. She was a U.S. Navy Rear Admiral and pioneer in computer science when the field was just emerging. Over a half-century has gone by since the early achievements of Amazing Grace, as she was called by her colleagues and friends. During this period, NSF has played an essential role in fostering advances in information technology that have transformed our world. From ubiquitous connectivity and cybersecurity to smart systems, data analytics, and advanced computing, NSF's investments have accelerated the pace of discovery in nearly all fields. They have enabled us to achieve national priorities and driven economic competitiveness. Now, computers and computer infrastructure, cyber everything is just integral to the way we do every kind of science and engineering. However, in order to sustain and grow this momentum, it's crucial that the U.S. continues to build a globally competitive 21st century workforce. We must discover and deploy new gender and ethnicity-specific methods of recruitment and retention in order to ensure that every student in schools across the country has access to the most advanced learning environments and can take advantage of new approaches to computational and data-intensive science and engineering. Surprisingly, access to computer science at the K-12 levels remains extremely limited. The students we met this morning and their example notwithstanding. In fact, the majority of U.S. high schools, as you heard from Dr. Holdren, don't offer a single computer science class. And of those that do, females and minorities participate in very low numbers. NSF is working to change that. First, we're focusing on the development of rigorous, engaging computer science high school curricula, course materials, and assessments. A key part of this is the creation of scalable models of professional development for teachers. For example, over the last several years, we've led an initiative that we call CS10K, or Training 10,000 Computer Science High School Teachers across the country by the year 2017. Second, NSF supports the research needed to establish best practices for engaging and retaining diverse student populations so that every student has the opportunity to see computer science as engaging, personally relevant, and empowering. With this two-pronged approach, NSF has built an evidence-based foundation for K-12 computer science education. But we cannot get computer science courses into high schools across the country all by ourselves. Catalyzing national movement that we're all celebrating here today requires working with the private sector, including Microsoft and Google, with professional organizations like the Association for Computing Machinery, and with nonprofit organizations like Code.org. To this end, I'm pleased and I'm honored this morning to announce a number of new public-private partnerships and to celebrate other partnerships that have existed for some time, all in support of computer science education at the K-12 levels. So first, the College Board is launching a new Computer Science Advanced Placement, or AP, course called CS Principles. With support from NSF, the course has been designed to explore the creative aspects of computing while also focusing on basic computer science knowledge. The first exam is scheduled for the spring of 2017, but hundreds of schools and colleges across the U.S. are already piloting the course. The College Board will offer several teacher support tools for this new course, including a dedicated online portal, what else, for teachers to share information and resources. We're thrilled to be working with the College Board to enable this new course. The hope is that CS principals will prepare a more diverse student population, including groups typically underrepresented in computing, to excel in the demands of the 21st century. Second, the National Center for Women in Information Technology, or NCWIT, which champions the inclusion of women in all aspects of computing and began with NSF funding, is announcing today a new nationwide initiative to engage Hispanic females in computing and technology careers. This effort is funded in part by the cloud email delivery company SendGrid. Latinas represent the fastest growing female population in the U.S., and including their perspectives and talents in computing is vital to sustaining and growing our information technology innovation ecosystem. And third, we're joining forces with Code.org, which is a nonprofit dedicated to expanding participation in computer science, particularly among women and underrepresented students. Working together, we can coordinate and leverage our activities to increase access to high-quality computer science courses in U.S. schools. I'll say a bit more about our partnership with Code.org in just a minute. Fourth, we're partnering with several well-established national organizations that already provide great educational opportunities for students, specifically to add computer science to their educational offerings. For example, the National Math and Science Initiative, which is committed to improving student performance in the critical subjects of science, technology, engineering, and math, is expanding its portfolio to support teachers and schools in offering the AP CS Principles course. This effort aims to prepare teachers in 25 states to teach CS Principles by 2016. And similarly, we're working with Teach for America, which aims to ensure all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, or personal identity, have access to high-quality computer science experience at the pre-K through 12 levels. With this partnership, Teach for America is expanding an NSF-funded project in New York City to recruit, place, and support at least 75 new diverse teachers in low-income schools by 2019. And Project Lead the Way, known for delivering engineering courses into K-12 classrooms, is now offering a computer science pathway that began with the AP CS Principles curriculum. As part of this Project Lead the Way, we'll pilot a new curriculum in 12 underserved middle schools across the country with support from Verizon. And finally, NSF is expanding its ties to regional and local organizations to make computer science education more accessible in specific parts of the country. Among these ties, NSF recently issued a grant to support the efforts of the New York City Foundation for Computer Science Education. This private foundation is working to bring computing to all schools in New York City. The NSF award will specifically bring the AP CS Principles curriculum to New York City schools. In addition, the Massachusetts Computing Attainment Network, or MassCan, is bringing the NSF-funded Exploring Computer Science course, which is rooted in research on equity in computer science, to all Massachusetts high schools. MassCan aims to offer professional development to 3,000 teachers over the next 3 years. While each of the partnerships that I've just announced is integral in expanding our computer science education efforts across the U.S., I want to return to Code.org. This nonprofit has already had an amazing reach. Tens of millions of students in more than 180 countries. They have been introduced to computer science through its Hour of Code. And I just had my first Hour of Code this morning. So, NSF will be hosting its own Hour of Code later this week. Today, NSF and Code.org are entering into a memorandum of understanding. This agreement provides a structure through which we can coordinate and co-develop projects and programs to make computer science education more accessible in schools throughout the U.S. I'd like now to invite Hardy Partovi. Hardy Partovi, please. I just met Hadi this morning at Pete's Coffee Shop around the corner. And I'm just so proud to have you join me here at the podium. Hadi is the founder and CEO of Code.org. We're looking forward to working with Code.org to help ensure that every student in every school across the country has the opportunity to learn computer science. And I'd like for you to have the opportunity to speak to us for a couple of minutes about your view about this partnership.
I'm only going to say a couple sentences because I'm going to talk a little bit before the next panel. I just want to say we're delighted to be partnering with the National Science Foundation. The NSF has laid the groundwork for so much of what's happening in computer science education today, and it wouldn't be possible without that groundwork and that foundation for Code.org to do what it's doing. We are spending the time, the money, and the effort to scale out the courses Dr. Cordova mentioned, the Exploring Computer Science course and the Computer Science Principles course that are going to be spreading around the country. Our work wouldn't be possible without the research that went into developing those courses. So thank you so much for your help.
Thank you. Thank you. And take a good look at Hadi's cap. That was the cap that President Barack Obama was wearing this morning as he was talking to the students. Finally, before I conclude, I'd like to recognize the team at the National Science Foundation that has worked so hard over the years to catalyze the computer science education movement from within our organization. In particular, I want to recognize NSF's Jan Cooney, to whom much of this moment, please stand, Jan, please stand. Jan, your efforts over many years have just, as you can see, had a profound effect. And this morning, as I went around the room, there was one name that everybody knew and talked about and wanted to thank and acknowledge, and it was your name, Jan. So thank you so much. I hope this is just I know this is a very, very special moment for you. The partnerships that I've announced here today are helping us to expand our reach and inspire a new generation of computational savvy students. By working together, we can ensure that the U.S. students will become tomorrow's leaders. They'll maintain our nation's place as the innovation engine of the world well into the future, and you can all be thankful and applaud yourselves for that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so before we do the panel, we're going to play a quick video, but I also want to acknowledge Danielle, who is just an incredible leader and has put this event together. So, Dr. Danielle Corrival. And also Kumar, if you're in the room. I don't know if Kumar Garg is here. No, he's running around. So quickly before we present the video, one of the key things that happens when people come to the White House, we're hoping that you meet each other. And so just quickly, turn to someone you don't know, introduce yourself, quickly. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna bring you guys back. Hello, hello. I'm gonna bring you guys back now. Hey, it worked. Okay, so one of my favorite things is the incredible insights I get from meeting everyone who comes, and and a fabulous example with some of the leadership superintendents. Just a couple incredible things that they thought of doing. We were working on ConnectEd. One of the superintendents, the president mentioned this in his remarks on ConnectEd, was taking school buses, having them have Wi-Fi, and instead of parking them in parking lot, parking them out in communities that didn't have as much access. Right? Brilliant. Another superintendent had figured out that he could only teach one language. So he gave any student, who had a B average or better, they allowed them to take a foreign language class online, and they got to skip first period. So you know that those high school kids were sleeping in and doing that at night, but it was incredible. And the other idea they had, that same group, I think they were in Alabama, was to have ask the kids, there's this summer slump. And so they asked the kids, if we gave you a computer for the summer, would you take a class? Any kid who was willing to take a class got their computer, 40% of the kids signed up. So you guys have the answers to all of this amongst yourselves. And so that's why I just want to make sure that you met and started talking and really build this community. And I hope you will do that 4 more times or more during this event, okay? During the breaks probably, so we're not getting off time. So Danielle's going to cue this video, and then Hadi will be up with the panel of some incredible school leadership. Go.
Hi, everybody. Last year, students and teachers across our country celebrated Computer Science Education Week with an hour of code. They learned new skills, programmed games and apps, and realized that while no one is born a computer scientist, becoming a computer scientist isn't as scary as it sounds. With hard work and a little math and science, anyone can do it. For this year's Computer Science Education Week, more than 48 million people have already signed up, and we're hoping even more of you will get involved. Don't just consume things, create things. Take an hour to learn more about the technology that touches every part of our lives. That's how you can prepare yourself with the skills you need for your future. And it's how you can help prepare our country for the future as well. America's always been a nation of tinkerers and builders and inventors. We brought the world everything from the light bulb and the telephone to the iPad and the internet. So whether you're a young man trying his hand at programming for the first time, or a young woman who's already hard at work on the next big thing, we're counting on you, America's young people, to keep us on the cutting edge. Thanks, everybody, and happy coding.